More now on our breaking news. Nearing sunrise in Iran and Israel, a source tells CNN that the president has reviewed Iran attack plans, but he's holding off to see if the country is going to step back from its nuclear program. Alex is back with us here to talk through the president's potential options here. And as you see it, there are three main scenarios that could play out here. The first one is essentially that Israel decides to go it alone.
Correct. So if the president decides to let the Israelis do it by themselves, if he's comfortable, he thinks they have the capabilities to do enough damage that he's comfortable with the after effects of it, this is what it would look like. So in terms of Fordo, you really have two options. The Israelis previously launched a raid into Syria about 200 kilometers north into a chemical weapons facility. So they put commandos on the ground before. That's an extreme option with a lot of risk, obviously putting people on. But as you can see, the tunnel entrance is here. So we got them here, right, here, and here. Right, so if you're going to send folks inside into the mountain into a deep buried facility as a render safe mission, kind of difficult.
Yeah,
but
I mean, how defended is this area, though? I mean, are there, Iranians on the ground?
Sure.
What else is there?
So, I mean, there's plenty of defenses that are here. This was specifically built as a deep buried facility to withstand conventional attacks, either from a ground or an air raid.
Yeah.
So, and you also have what we'd call fatal funnels or choke points, because if there's any guns inside, those are the only entrance points, and that's where they're pointing. So it's a very difficult mission set for anybody performing it.
Yeah.
No.
So the second option is that the United States does a limited attack, and it sounds like from our reporting that is what the United States is trying to figure out. What is the limited option here?
Right. So if it's limited option, so if it wasn't the ground raid and the Israelis, those same tunnels, if they don't bomb them, to collapse the tunnels and the air shafts so they can't get inside, requiring constant suppression, then it becomes the U.S. option, right? There's really only one aircraft that's capable of carrying the 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs required to do the mission, and it's the B-2 stealth bombers that you see here. So round trip to the United States with refueling, provided that nothing forward deployed, probably multiple sorties involved, but that's realistically what we're looking at in order to do enough damage to set the program back.
Yeah, and the B-2s, Israel doesn't have them.
They don't have them, and that's why it requires the U.S., and they can't deliver as big of a blow from the air.
Yeah, so talk us through option three. This is essentially looking at the region and saying not just this one facility, but let's take it all out. Like, what are we talking about in terms of that?
Sure. I think this is the least likely option to start with. If the president makes a decision to hit Fordo, his political base doesn't support, a war. He certainly doesn't want to collapse the government there and deal with nation and state building, which is what we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan. But if we did go in and decide to strike, right, what do the targets look like outside of that? You can see the nuclear facilities here with the nuclear symbols, and then you've got regime targets, and then you've got oil refineries along there, which is really far expanded at that point. It's more likely that would be. But that would realistically probably only happen if they decide to go after U.S. forces in the region. So we have between Qatar, the UAE, we've got major air bases. U.S. Central Command has a forward headquarters at Al Udeid Air Force Base in Doha. We've got major bases in Kuwait. But what's probably the most likely would be the U.S. bases here, outside of Baghdad, up north in Kurdistan, and then here in Syria along the border, which is what everybody's predicting they would try to hit. So the U.S. has been surging assets in. F-22 squadron came in today into the U.K., all kinds of fighter assets and air defense systems to protect U.S. forces that are there. Ships were moved out of the harbors, and aircraft that were not in hardened bunkers have already been moved out. It is very clear the U.S. is preparing for a potential option to strike at this point.
Yeah, a potential option to strike, but they do not, it seems like, want a scenario where all of this is at play with Iran.
Certainly not. No, I think that's what they're trying to avoid. And everything to date from CENTCOM has largely been defensive in nature to protect forces that are there. And there's a lot of dual citizens. People don't realize that there are millions of citizens that are potentially traveling through the region through Europe, and those that are dual citizens of Israel and other countries.
Yeah, Alex, thank you very much for joining us and for giving us all that information. Will he or won't he? Tonight, the world is watching and waiting for President Trump to make the single most consequential decision of his time in office so far, whether he will allow the United States to get involved in the conflict between Israel and Iran. Now, just a short time ago, CNN learned that Trump has reviewed potential attack plans for Iran, but he has not approved them. He is holding off to see if Tehran steps back from its nuclear program. Meanwhile, Trump met with his national security team in the Situation Room to discuss the options for U.S. military involvement. And we're told that top officials are now discussing how the U.S. can strike Iran without becoming embroiled in a full-scale war. Meanwhile, Israel and Iran continue to trade strikes, and the relentless barrage enters its 7th day. So here is what Iran is saying if the United States decides to join Israel's attacks.
If the Americans decide to get involved militarily, we have no choice but to retaliate wherever we find the targets necessary to be acted upon.
CNN anchor Anderson Cooper is live now in Tel Aviv. Anderson, now that you are on the ground in Israel, what is it like there? Do you get the sense of anticipation for what Trump's decision is going to be and what that might mean for Israel and the region?
There's certainly a lot of anticipation here. Just in the last hour, Iran's Revolutionary Guard has said that air defenses have been activated in Tehran. Now, the IDF has also, in the last hour, put out a warning to Iranians in 2 areas around Tehran to evacuate because of strikes that they are going to be conducting. There's no word yet on what the latest targets might be from Israel. Earlier today, the Israeli Air Force said that 25 fighter jets had hit more than 40 targets in western Iran. They're talking about missile storage sites, military personnel, missile launchers as well. Israel continues, Abby, as you know, to dominate the skies over western Iran and seems able to take their time selecting out new targets, searching for new targets, and hitting those at will. Now, at the same time, Iran's ability to launch missiles here into Tel Aviv and elsewhere into Israel seems to be greatly reduced. Today, there have only been 2 warnings that have gone out to residents here in Tel Aviv to seek shelter. We've gone down to the shelters twice today. That's a lot less than in prior days. No reports of any fatalities as a result of those attempts by Iran. It is just past 5 a.m. here. Dawn is just starting to break. And once again, residents here are going to be waking up wondering what this next phase of the conflict will bring and what will President Trump decide to do.
Yeah, I mean, the entire world waits. And I know, Anderson, you've only been on the ground for a short time now, but what is life like in Tel Aviv? I mean, are people able to go about their lives? I mean, we've seen a lot of our correspondents and anchors having to go into stairwells and bomb shelters as these sirens have gone on. But are people able to do other things?
Yeah, you know, life in many ways has slowly gotten back. I wouldn't say to normal here. There's certainly a lot of concern about what lies ahead, how long this may go on for, what the impact of it is going to be, and whether or not the U.S. is going to get involved. But in Tel Aviv, I mean, Tel Aviv is often referred to as a bubble. You know, there were people swimming in the ocean today. There were people watching the sunset. There was coffee shops are open. Life has not returned completely to normal, but I think the fear that we saw over the weekend with so many strikes coming from Iran, the 24 people died here, many others were injured, others have been left homeless because of the destruction of property. I think the stress levels have reduced. It's become a little bit more normal, and the 2 times that we went down to bomb shelters today, there wasn't a lot of fear from people. There was concern, of course. Nobody likes to do that. Some people were in their bathrobes. They'd just gotten out of the shower when the air raid warnings went off. They had 10 minutes to get down to the bomb shelter, and then shortly after got the all clear. So while there's a lot of concern and a lot of stress, and there's a lot of people who would like to leave and more Israelis who would like to come back, the commercial airspace is still closed. Life is slowly getting back to some semblance of normal. You know, restaurants aren't fully open. The life of the city is not continuing, but it's certainly better than it has been in the last several days.
Anderson, thank you very much for all of that. Anderson Cooper in Tel Aviv. It's been an interesting day, to say the least, for President Trump. As he's weighing this potentially presidency-defining decision, he was actually on the White House lawn this morning overseeing a construction project. But while he was there, the president had this extraordinary warning for Iran.
Unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. No more. Then we go blow up all the, all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place there.